It is Book Review Sunday, and today I have two books to review. And for the first time in a while, both books are going to get 5-star reviews from me. So this is a great day. Also, both of them are brand new series and or authors to my channel. So also lots of newness, and I'm excited about that. So let's start with the first one, which is Pulled by the Tail by Nancey Cummings. So Nancey Cummings is not a new author to me as a reader, but this is a new series to me as a reader. This is her Tail and Claw series. So because this isn't our usual Mad Fell Warrior alien romance, I do got to give you some world building. This one uh, does have Earth having interstellar relationships with alien planets, though there is no invasion from a specific alien race. There isn't a lot of background information on how Earth got in contact with other alien planets. We just, at this point in the future, we are there. And so aliens live on Earth, humans live on other planets, they're all intermixing. And there is a dating app called Celestial Mates. And Celestial Mates claims that with a small questionnaire, they can find your perfect match. So these are you get married when you sign the contract before you even meet your mate in person. And so this is the situation our characters are in. So this is the second of 4 books in the Tail and Claw series. I read the first one, Have Tail Will Travel, before I started doing these reviews, but you can find it on Goodreads and look at what other people have to say. I loved the first one. So the second one, none of the characters are really connected to the first one. They just are the same species. So the alien species is called Tal, Tal, and they come from a planet called Talmar. Now, our Tal characters in both book 1 and book 2 are on a different planet because their planet went through a political revolution and they fled the civil war and turmoil that was going on. So our main male character, his name is Talon. He and his brother were came from a wealthy sort of royal family, and their parents were killed during the war, and their nursemaid smuggled them off the planet. And so they have, even though they have royal ancestry, they've grown up as your average Joes. And our human character, Georgia, she just cannot catch a break on Earth with human men. They're all terrible to her. And in a moment of desperation, after she catches her fiance cheating on her, and she loses her job because he was her boss and he won't give her a good reference for any other jobs, she applies for Celestial Mates and gets matched to Talon's brother, Quill. Now, what happens is the translating the contract from their language, from Tal to English, mixes up the names, and Quill knows this. And so he knows that when Georgia arrives, she can be married to him if he wants to keep her, or he can pass her off to his brother Talon. And he chooses to pass her off to his brother Talon, and Talon has no idea that this is going to happen. So Georgia arrives thinking that she's married to Quill, and Quill says, "Just kidding, I'm handing you off to my brother." And Georgia is furious, and Talon is as well, but Talon does develop feelings and attraction to Georgia a lot quicker than she develops feelings and attraction for him. So let's get to why I love this story so much. Like I said in my intro, I do give this story 5 stars. What I liked: curvy female lead. I I don't need to read every single romance with a curvy female lead, but I do like that Nancey Cummings does a great job of mixing up the body types of her characters. With her Madfill books, it's a mixture of super skinny to super curvy, and it's great. I don't know where she's heading with the rest of her Tail and Claw series. I've only read 2 of the 4, but both human females in both the first and second are on the curvier side, which their weight is why they struggle to be successful with dating human men. And because these alien species are much larger than a human male, a larger human female is perfect for them. Talon is very caring. With Nancey Cummings stories, a lot of she kind of takes us on a roller coaster. Some of her characters are alpha males and very bossy and very controlling and just want their woman to remain barefoot and pregnant all day long. And then they have to learn to not be that way by the end of the book. But right off the bat, Talon is not that way. He's very caring. He wants to support Georgia in her needs and what she wants to do. And the only time he's bossy with his brother because Quill makes a lot of dumb choices, but really that's the only person Talon is bossy with. So I really appreciated that he was a softer male character. They are in what falls under a marriage of convenience trope. And this one is unique because they don't know that they are married to each other until they discovered the translation issues between the two languages and the contract and the marriage contract when Georgia thought she was marrying Quill. And so I don't love marriage of convenience tropes. I'm not against them. I'll read them, but I'm not actively seeking them out. And so I really liked that this one is different than your average marriage of convenience trope. And so it and I don't want to give anything away, but they do have the chance to end the marriage, and then when they're ready to be when Georgia's truly ready, then they can get remarried. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it's really great that Talon is patient enough to let her come to her feelings about him on her own, even though he's basically willing to accept her after a couple days of her being on the planet. So really great. I love when tropes take us on a different journey than what we expect. And then the last thing that I liked is so when it comes to stories like these, there's kind of multiple villains. And so we knew there's this character named Fiona who we know she's going to do something to screw everyone over. That much is obvious. But we also know she's not smart enough to be the main villain. So she's got to be working for someone. And I was so sure I knew who it was, and it wasn't that person. And so I love it when an author can surprise me, because I do feel like I'm getting pretty good at guessing how things are going to go. And Nancey Cummings totally gave me whiplash. I did not see that coming. So who the main villain was a nice surprise, and I was happy to be surprised about that. And the heat level for this is sensual or 3 flames. So if you like alien romances, check out Hold by the Tail. Second book for today, Imprisoned by the Alpha by Sara Sharpe. And this book is only available on the Dreame reading app, Dreame. And their logo is a purple unicorn. And so this is a pay by chapter. So you don't buy the whole, I mean, you can, but it's still the full price of the book would be however many chapters there are and how much money each chapter costs. When I read on Dreame, I tend to just do chapter by chapter, because if I get to the point where I'm pretty certain I'm not going to finish the book, then I haven't spent money on those chapters that I didn't read. So this one is very, very different from your usual shifter romance. I don't know if this one does not fall under a romance. You can't call it a romance because a romance has to have a happily ever after. And this book does not have a happily ever after. So I think this book may be a dark romance. Um, I'm not super well versed on what makes a story a dark romance or not. It definitely has dark romance vibes. Um, but there's really no redemption at the end. So I think this really would just simply fall under paranormal fiction with romantic elements. And this one is very controversial. On Dreame, you can comment at the end of each chapter, and there were lots of angry readers because they wanted a happily ever after type of story, and this is not it. And I'm not saying this to ruin the book or give spoilers, but I just think the target audience for this book is a bit more narrow. And so I don't want, if you want sappy, happily ever after, this book isn't for you. But if you're okay with being challenged um, with what is and isn't okay in these paranormal relationships, then this might be a good read for you. So I did give this one 5 stars, and I I honestly, the whole time I was reading it, I went back and forth between 2 stars and 5 stars, which is a really big jump, but it's because it took me a while to figure out what kind of story I was reading. And like I said, it's not a typical happy paranormal lovey-dovey romance. Um, it is very dark. The male character is awful and he has no redemption. But the reason why I ended up giving it 5 stars in the end is because the characters that the author created made choices that made sense for who they were. And even though it's not the type of story I would choose to write, I did find myself enjoying reading it. And I do feel like I can read this type of story maybe once a year or every other year or something. The author really challenged me, and I appreciate that she did that. And I thought she wrote very, very well. Her writing style was amazing. So this story is about a human girl named Edie who works at a gas station. She has a traumatic past and she's living on her own and taking care of herself. She's 19. And a werewolf walks into the gas station and realizes that she is his mate, and he is the alpha of a nearby pack. And because she's human, he can't just be like, hey, you're my mate, come live with me. And so he decides to break into her home and kidnap her. And there are lots of kidnapping werewolf fated mate stories. But usually the kidnapping is the worst thing that he does. And then once he gets her to his pack, then he tries to woo her. And I'm not trying to say that kidnapping is okay. I'm just explaining that that is just simply a common plot point in some of these shifter romance stories. But Zacharias, who is the name of our werewolf, goes beyond just simply kidnapping. He doesn't try to woo her. He thinks that because he's the alpha, that he just gets to have whatever he wants. And he's obsessive and possessive. And so he keeps her locked in his room the whole time she's on with his pack. And she never gets to meet anyone else in the pack except for his beta. And it's just very, very traumatic for her the whole time. A human police officer finds her and tries to rescue her, and the alpha kills him, and she tries to escape over and over, and she keeps getting recaptured over and over. And um, so it can be triggering. If that kind of stuff is triggering, then once again, you're not a part of the target audience, and that is completely okay. Um, I normally don't read books like these, but the author's writing style was just so good. And Edie was so determined to escape that I wanted to see her story through. I needed to see if she got out. So, why I liked this atypical fated mate story so much. First, strong female lead. Edie, and when I say that, she's not a Mary Sue. Edie is not perfect. She has a lot of trauma. She has a lot of mental health issues. She has anger management issues. But the reason why I consider her strong is because she acknowledges that she has those issues and does what she can to use them to her advantage in the situation she's been placed in, as well as overcome them in order to better herself. And the biggest thing I love about her, and it's something that I want all women to have, is that she acknowledges her self-worth. She knows that she deserves better than what Zacharias is giving her. And so she, regardless of the magic of the mate bond, she fights it and fights it and fights it because she knows that she deserves better than being kidnapped and locked in a room for the rest of her life. Which leads me to another thing that I love when I come across is an unsympathetic villain. And I think I talked about this in my last review episode as well, is I feel like a lot of the books I read over the past decade or so, sympathetic villains is the current trend. And I like when a villain is just evil. And then we can root against them and bring them down. And Zacharias is that way. He also has a traumatic past like Edie, but it's not framed in a way that it's like, oh, because he went through this, he can't help who he is. It's not framed, it's framed in more of a, yeah, he went through this, but if he was stronger, he would have come out a better person and learned, because I was treated this way, I shouldn't treat other people that way. But Zacharias doesn't overcome that. He doesn't overcome his past. Next, like I explained when I was talking about the plot, this breaks fated mate norms. Edie does not give in to the mate bond after all the drama and trauma that she went through. There's no epiphany of, oh my gosh, I love him because he's my mate, so I'm going to forgive everything he's ever done, even though he's a terrible person. None of that happens. She fights the bond till the bitter end. And I'm not going to tell you what happens, but like I said, this does not have a happy ending, but it kind of can. It depends on your point of view. And there is a slight difference, or there is a way that I would have loved it to end just slightly differently. And normally, if there's anything that I would change, I give it 4 stars, and I have my little section that says I wish. But I decided against that with this one because as I've been contemplating how the author chose to end the story, it made sense for the world that she built, the magic of the werewolves, the magic of the mate bond, the type of person that Edie was, the type of person that Zacharias was. It made sense. So because it made sense, maybe it's a happy-ish ending because Edie did get to choose how everything went down. The most of the book stuff is happening to her, and in those final chapters, she takes charge. So that can be happy. But I can also see how someone would be like, oh, that's a really sad ending. And I'm one of those people. The ending is sad. But I'm one who believes that a story can still be a good story even with a sad ending, and this is one of those stories. So, if you are able to be okay with um, obsessive and possessive, leaning into emotional abuse triggers, you want to challenge yourself with an unhappy fated mate's story with romantic elements, then check out Imprisoned by the Alpha by Sara Sharpe on Dreame. So those are the two books that I finished this week. I think I will be finishing for sure one book this upcoming week. So next week I'll be back again to talk at least about one more book. So I will see you next week. Oh, and if you have not subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can be the first to know about new episodes.